guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Kiana and I do a lot of sewing and fashion videos. And today we are tackling Halloween. Okay, so we're not doing like a Halloween costume. Although if you do have Halloween costume suggestions that you want to see me DIY, definitely leave that down below because I'm kind of like just out of ideas. So definitely if you want to help me out, feel free to do that. But I've had this Jack Skellington Nightmare Before Christmas fabric for like a really long time. Oh, it's so flippin' cute. And I've wanted to do something and I think I finally know what I can do. Plus Halloween is approaching, so this is the perfect time. So first of all, let's see how much of this we have even. Okay, yeah, so it looks like I have about 2 yards. It looks like I honestly have like 1 3/4 of a yard. So it's not enough to do like a big dress, and it's a lot more than I need to make a top. So we gotta hit that sweet spot in the middle. So my idea is, if you guys have seen my baby doll dress tutorial, I made this baby doll dress. It has a bunch of tiers. It's made from cotton, so it's super easy to make, and it's like the same type of fabric as this. Also, I have a tutorial and pattern. I have a pattern on that one too. But I have a tutorial and pattern on this dress right here. Super easy to make. And I could use this to make this dress. So what I kind of wanted to do was kind of like combine the two patterns. However, if you don't have either of those patterns, don't worry because we're going to take the simplest parts from each of those patterns. If you do have both of the patterns, then well, you are for sure in luck because you're not gonna have to really do anything. But yeah, so what I wanna do is do like the 2-tiered version. So I wanna do like 2 tiers for the skirt of this dress. Yeah, I just think that this dress would look super cute as like a spaghetti strap baby doll dress, because how adorable would that be? Like layered over a turtleneck, a black turtleneck with like black knee-high boots. That would be my fall fit, my go-to for sure. So I'm feeling like this is gonna be a super simple thing to achieve, even if you don't have the patterns. Again, you're basically just gonna make a bunch of rectangles for this dress. So let's just see what we come up with. And if you wanna learn how to make whatever I'm about to make, then just keep watching. Okay, like I said, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to create. I kind of have an idea, but I definitely wanna sketch it out first so that I'm not just kind of winging it as I go. So I have my brand new sketchbook, which I'm super excited about. It's brand new. It just launched from Fashionary. I'm obsessed with it, one, because in the front of it, it has all this different information. So like if I have designer's block, I could open it up here and look at the necklines and be like, oh, I'd like to do a heart-shaped neck today. Oh, I'm just super excited about the beginning. And then also, let me open it up to a blank page. They have really lightly drawn croquis, 2 on each side, so you can get like 4 designs on one spread. And it's just great for me because I am just not great at drawing croquis. So having this already drawn out is it's just literally a lifesaver. So I've already sketched out my designs, as you can see here. And look, you can't even really see the croquis underneath, especially if I had colored this. What I've done is I've sketched 2 designs. Let me kind of turn it towards you. They're very, very similar. However, the only difference is really where the placement of the skirt starts. So this Empire waistline, I've never really been a fan of. Super cute. I just don't like how the fullness emphasizes the stomach area. I'm more into, I think, starting the fullness at the bust line. This way, there's fullness everywhere. It's just kind of like a giant tent dress. This is more similar to the style lines of my actual baby doll dress because that fullness started at the bust line or right below the bust line. So this way, it's not just emphasizing the stomach, it's emphasizing everything. So you're basically like a giant cupcake in this dress. So I think I'm going with this design, plus because this is above the bust line, you need no shaping elements, whereas opposed to this, you're gonna need some darts or princess seams or something to get it around the bust. This is so much easier. Also, if you can see, I was playing around with either regular spaghetti straps or tie straps. I think tie straps would look super cute if this was like a plain dress, but since I'm doing the Jack Skellington fabric, I'm gonna go with the regular spaghetti straps. Oh, and by the way, if you're interested in this sketchbook, which I'm freaking obsessed with this sketchbook, it also comes in a smaller size. It's from Fashionary and I am an affiliate with them, so if you would like to purchase this, use my code Kiana10 and you can get 10% off your order. All right, you guys, so it is now time to drape. I have my bust bridge on my dress form and I have my piece of muslin. So when I'm draping, it doesn't really matter if it's loose on the bottom. All that matters is that it's tight around the top area of the bust, around where the neckline is going to be, because that's the only part of this dress that really needs to be fitted. So I am just drawing out a line for where I want my neckline to be. I also marked where the bust is so that I can measure and make the piece to the length that I want it to be, and I'm just gonna measure that equally all the way around. So the only line I'm really taking from this draping process is the neckline. And that's it. It's super freaking simple. And then I'm just gonna make patterns with it. To make the patterns, you can take so many different routes. You can scan it into your printer and then just print it out. You can trace around it like I'm doing. You can put the paper over it and trace around it and hold it up to a window. Just whatever you wanna do. I'm just tracing around and I'm adding 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I'm cutting it out, making sure to add my little arrows to denote that I'm gonna cut them both on the fold. So for this particular dress, I'm going to cut out 2 of the front and 2 of the back on the fold, just so that the top is fully lined. And when I say the top, I just mean this like bust band bodice situation that I got going on. I also cut out 1 of my fashion fabric and 1 of muslin because I didn't want to cut out 2 of the fashion fabric so that you would be able to see like the prints on the lining. So I cut out 1 solid and 1 print. Okay, now for the skirt, it's super easy. It's just gonna be a bunch of rectangles. Measure how long you want your skirt to be, measure that height, and then just divide it by the number of tiers that you're creating to get the height of each tier. To get the width, each rectangle is gonna be a little bit wider than the one before it because we're gathering it. So you just measure the previous width and you multiply that by whatever ratio you want. So generally, gathering ratios are like 1.5 or 2, and then that will be the new width of your next rectangle. Obviously, this is not my Jack Skellington dress. This is actually my baby doll dress that I created a few weeks ago, but gathering is the same no matter how you do it. It's the same principle. Also, instead of cutting out my rectangles, I'm just tearing and ripping through the cotton because it'll rip in a straight line once you get a little clip in there. And then this is just super easy, and it's a way to make sure that all your rectangular skirt pieces are perfectly rectangular. Now I'm just gonna cut out straps by, again, just doing that whole clip and rip method that I got going on. I make my straps 1.5 inches wide just because I find that's the easiest width to sew while it still looks nice and thin like a spaghetti strap. And I made it 20 inches long because I'm going to cut it down later after measuring my straps to be the exact length I need. So I'm just making them longer than I need, and then I'm gonna trim them down. Okay, so now if y'all know how a lining works, then you could totally skip ahead because I'm not actually gonna sew anything right now, but I'm just showing you that you need to sew your lining and your shell the opposite way so that when you put them together, you'll have a nice finished inside as well as an outside. So if you look at my fashion fabric, the front is actually on the right and the back is on the left. Now for the muslin, the front is on the left and the back is on the right because you're gonna sew them at opposite side seams. You're gonna do this because you want a nice finished inside and outside, and you'll kind of understand later on if you don't understand right now and even if you've never done a lining before. But I like to lay it out and kind of just visualize it beforehand so I don't accidentally sew them both the same way because that would not be right. So that is what I'm doing. However, before I sew them together, I'm just gonna finish the edges of the side seam on those bodice pieces just so it makes my life easier later on. After I do that, I can go ahead and sew the pieces together like how I laid them out before at the side seam at opposite side seams. And of course, don't forget to press open your seams. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make my straps because that is super duper easy. I'm going to make them by just folding them in quarters. So I'm gonna fold in half and then fold them towards the center and then one more time so that it's basically divided into quarters. And then after I press it, I am just gonna stitch down that open edge to create the straps. Now we're gonna move on to the skirt for a bit. I'm kind of doing this in a weird order because we have to put a zipper in, so we kind of gotta do everything all at once. And yeah. So you'll understand. So first, for the skirt, this is not necessary, but I'm just going to serge the sides of all the skirt pieces so I can press it open and reduce the bulk and just make my life easier later. Then I'm just gonna sew up one side seam of the first tier and then I'm gonna press it nice and flat. So our goal is to connect this first tier of the skirt to our bodice. I
think it's funny calling it a bodice because it's just this like strip of fabric. But so what we're gonna do is we're gonna gather it all up so that it can fit into the bodice. To gather it, I'm gonna sew 2 rows of basting stitches in the seam allowance of the skirt tier at the top of the skirts, and then I'm just going to grab the 2 bobbin threads and then just kind of tug and pull and gather up this fabric until it is the same length as the bodice. Then I'm just gonna pin it together, and then ready? I made a mistake, but I kept it in here because I wanted to show you guys my mistake. It's a real mistake, y'all. What happened is I cut the front and back skirt to be the same exact width, but the bodice front and back is not the same width. So if I were to gather it to fit into the bodice, the back would end up being gathered more. Like the back of the skirt would be way too gathered. So I let out some of those gathers at the back, and I ended up just cutting it off later on because I didn't want it to be super gathered in the back and not as gathered in the front. I did this because my old baby doll dress was like the same width on the front and back bodice, and I did not think about that for this dress. So just something to think about. It honestly wouldn't have made much of a difference if I had just left it alone and didn't fix my mistake, but I did. And so as you can see, what I've been doing is sewing the skirt to the bodice and then just serging it to make it a clean seam. And then here's just me further fixing that mistake, just serging that new skirt side seam. I already cut it off, but now I'm just serging it to make it all clean. Now I'm just putting in an invisible zipper. You guys have seen me do this so many times, so if you want a super detailed tutorial, go and watch any other video. I will link some down below. I'll put a card on the top of the screen, but basically all I'm gonna do is sew down one side, and then my real good tips come in here when I'm matching up the other side. So I put my pin in where I stopped sewing on one side. I also put a pin in where that seam is between the skirt and the bodice, so that when I flip it over, I know exactly where to place my zipper and where to sew it. Then I'm just finishing my invisible zipper by sewing up the rest of that seam. Now it's time to figure out our straps. So I'm going to place my dress in my dress form and place the straps on top of that. I'm figuring out where I want my straps to be. I'm really focusing only on one side because I can always match the other side, but basically I'm figuring out the placement I want and also the length I want. I know my dress form really well, and I know my torso is longer than it, so I'm going to lengthen my straps an additional inch. Now to match the other strap, I'm just gonna measure how far away the placement of the strap is from the side seam and just copy that for the other side. Also, make sure that your straps are the same length if you are cutting it down, which you probably are if you made it too long like I did. Now before I attach the lining, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the bottom edge of it. Do whatever you want with that. Serge it, zigzag stitch it, use pinking shears, whatever. Now I'm gonna place my lining right on top of my shell fabric, and because we sewed it opposite ways, it's gonna line up perfectly. I'm just gonna pin all the way around that lining on all 3 edges except for the bottom edge, and I'm going to sew that down using 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top and about a 1/4 inch seam allowance where the zipper is. But I'm just sewing all the way around that, then I'm clipping the corners, clipping the neckline, and then I'm gonna go into understitching. For understitching, I have the body of the dress on the left, the lining facing situation on the right, and the seam allowance underneath pointed towards the facing. I'm going to stitch very close to that seam, about 1/8 of an inch away, and that is just gonna keep the lining nice and secure without rolling out to the other side of the dress. Then after that, to finish off the bodice, I'm just going to stitch in the ditch to keep the lining facing in place. I don't know which one to call it because it's honestly a little bit of both, but to stitch in the ditch, I'm just stitching exactly in that seam where the bodice meets the skirt so that it hits the back where the lining is, and that keeps it very secure. Now lastly, all we have to do is add the second tier of the skirt to the rest of the dress. So I'm going to use the exact same method to attach this as I did for the other dress. Just sew it at the side seams, gather it, and then attach it to the first tier. And then just hem your dress. I'm using a 1 inch hem allowance, and after that, voila, you are done.
Okay, so here is the dress. I can't move too much because I have a microphone going through my dress. But yeah, I think it's super cute. I think it looks so cute with these like knee-high boots. Yeah, this is a fit. This is our fall fit. I will be wearing this until Halloween. Spooky season is here. I will give myself a critique. I honestly do wish I did the real like empire waist dress because I think that actually would have been cuter. This It's given us tent dress, and I'm okay with it, but you know what? I definitely could have added a little bit more pizzazz. But let me know what you guys think. Also, don't forget to leave requests for Halloween DIYs down below, and also let me know what you are being for Halloween, because that might actually give me some inspiration. Anyways, if you guys like this video, feel free to give me a thumbs up, because it is the easiest way to support your favorite creators for free. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is Kiana Bonolo. And yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!